Hello and welcome. You are watching our third live stream in the run-up to X Design Week, which is coming up very, very soon on the 3rd to the 6th of June, 2025 in Newcastle in the northeast of England. It's great to have you joining us today. Today we're going to be talking about all things culture and heritage, and I am delighted to introduce our guests for today's lineup, who will be helping me to explore this topic. It's one of the key pillars for X Design Week. And we're so proud to have Europeana as our culture and heritage partner. So I'd like to invite my two guests to today's discussion, where we're going to deep dive into that. We have Dr. Fiona Mowat, who is Senior Marketing Intelligence Coordinator at Europeana, and Julie Van Ooyen, who is Product Designer at Europeana. Hey guys, nice to have you with us. And I have to say, it's been great working with you on all of the ideas, discussions, and planning around X Design Week so far. Well, we don't like to sell to people, so this webinar is actually not really going to be about X Design Week. We're going to unpackage lots of ideas, but we will put that not so subtle message that it is only a few weeks to go, and we should remind people to hurry up and register because we can't wait to see you there. And as we'll discuss later in today's conversation, it's all about co-design and using these design techniques to explore trends and opportunities, and to do that collaboratively with a diverse and mixed set of people. So perhaps to start out with, I could do the introduction myself. I've got a few key numbers to throw out, such as around 55 million cultural objects. But I think, honestly, you guys do a much better job of this than me. So I'd love to invite you to tell our audience a little bit more about what Europeana is, why you exist, and I guess where technology is taking you today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Nick. Yeah, we're really excited to be involved in X Design Week. We can't wait to be there and really also see what synergies there are, like this natural synergies between cultural heritage and tourism, of course. And yeah, as to Europeana, so we're the Europeana Foundation. We are based in The Hague in the Netherlands, but we also have an international network. We have more than 5,000 network members from all over Europe and beyond. Working in cultural heritage in some capacity. They could be, for example, cultural heritage professionals, but also educators, researchers, tourism professionals, even people who are working in something that relates to cultural heritage. And yeah, as you said, we have a website where you can discover digital heritage from all over Europe. We have more than 58 million items there on our website that can be discovered. And Julie's one of the people who is working on our website. Julie, maybe you would like to say a bit more about that.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, Fiona. My name is Julie, and I'm the product designer for Europeana.eu and Europeana Foundation's digital products in general. So when we think about Europeana.eu, we're especially interested in having as many people as possible accessing the openly licensed, especially items within our collections. So over half of the collections have open licensing, and those can be used by educators, researchers, creatives, and of course, tourism professionals and designers to learn and to create creative projects, and also to design and create experiences for people using those collections. So on my side, I'm really interested in that.
Great to hear about what you're both doing. Sorry, I think I interrupted you a little bit there, Fiona, so carry on.
No, I was just going to say that also, our mission at Europeana is to work with cultural heritage institutions throughout Europe, and also to help them in digital transformation, to get those digital items online on their own, and using them in their own capacity in some way, but also, on our own website. And that we're funded by the European Commission, and a lot of our mission is really getting cultural heritage out there for people to use it.
Relevant for tourism, and I think this is often two worlds which kind of work in parallel and sometimes cross over. I would actually say almost always cross over, but maybe not always with the synergies that we should really be exploring and trying to bring out in working effectively together. So I'd really love for us to discuss a little bit of that today and kind of explore some of these key opportunities. And I think the first thing would be really just first of all looking at the value creation of Europeana when we think about tourism destinations, and how you see today that incredible collection being able to really enhance and strengthen the tourism offer. So tell us a little bit about how that looks like when we actually see things being developed which make that tangible and engaging and really inspiring.
Yeah, so I can go ahead with that one too. So what we see is actually that a lot of cultural sites, for example, can use digital cultural heritage to tell a story about the place that people are visiting. So, for example, you might go to a cultural site and for an average person, they might not be able to see what's special about that or really understand, what they're looking at. For example, if you go to an archaeological site, that might just be not so much to see there, or ruins or something like that. But digital heritage can really help to recreate what something might have looked like in the past, or to tell the story about the people who might have lived there in that place, or who might be buried in that site, or something like that. So it really helps to bring it to life through stories and engaging people in a different way. And we see a lot of people interacting with cultural heritage, such as the digital collections we have on Europeana, to really enhance the stories about these real places.
People access those collections? I know you've got a number of different ways. I think it would certainly be true to say that the audience of the digital tourism think tank, thinking about destinations and businesses across the whole of Europe, they range considerably in their technical capability. Some have gone all out, and they often represent the best practices, the cases that we really follow. We love to see what they're doing with new technologies, AI, XR, things like that. But then there are others who perhaps just don't have those technical resources. They depend a lot on kind of environments that can sort of plug and play out of the box. And I think when you talk about many of the amazing artifacts that could help tell those stories or provide those depths, the first thing that probably most people are wondering is how do I access that? How do I use that? And if the license is open and it's something that's freely available to use, how can I do that in a way which perhaps works at my level, whether it's going all out on APIs, or working with something much more off the shelf?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think it's really important to us that our collections are accessible to everyone, and that includes people who are designing experiences with them, regardless of their budget. So, of course, it's so exciting when we see our collections included in extended reality experiences and things like that. But also, coming from a service design perspective, it's really about the experience at the end of the day. So you don't always need something that uses really expensive or complex tooling. It's really about the story and the experience. So we've seen examples of just recorded storytelling. So many of these destinations already have audio tour capacity and things like that. So we've seen that work really nicely. That's also a kind of immersive storytelling, and more on that later, actually. And then also the fact that we have all these digital items available in our collections, those can be used on the existing materials that maybe some of these destinations have, such as, many of them may have a simple website, or they may already have some print materials, signage, and things like that. Maybe they have activities that they're leading with school groups and things like that. And these are also ways that the heritage can be used. It can even be as simple as printing it off and cutting it out and making a zine with it. And we've seen especially younger audiences really gravitate towards that, making the connection between the digital and the tangible, and the digital and the physical location.
There's really this opportunity that it feels like we haven't quite fully grasped in tourism, which is connecting the physical and the digital. I mean, there are many great examples. It sort of exists in pockets. There are some outstanding examples. I know many of them. If you dig under the surface, they go back to Europeana. And at the same time, there are so many stories just everywhere we go around us, where there's so little knowledge, so little awareness, and they're fascinating, and they really give a picture of where you are or the history, and maybe not only in terms of the kind of physical place, but also the impact of different figures over time. So it's a really interesting collection that you have. Tell us, maybe you can tell us a little bit about the kind of variety. What, when we talk about an artifact or an asset or a piece of content, what does that range from? Are we talking about kind of video and audio, maybe even all the way through to 3D objects? I don't know. I'm asking the question, and I think this will be really interesting for people to consider then how they might actually really leverage and use some of that.
Yeah, I can jump in. So for sure, we have a huge range of objects. So we do have a lot of images, many items, millions of images. And as Julie mentioned, some of those are free to use, of course. So those are great resources. But we also have audio files from things like archives where people are recording interviews with people speaking certain languages, or like this intangible heritage kind of side of things, like folk stories and that sort of thing. We have a lot of collections like that, to sounds that are bird song, for example, and we have some examples of that specifically where people use them in an app. So this is the kind of thing that you can do with these collections. We also have many video collections. We work usually with aggregators, so they are bigger institutions that also aggregate content from other cultural heritage institutions. And so some of those, like we have EU Screen, who has lots of video throughout all of Europe. So TV programs and things like that from a huge range of countries and different languages. And we have 3D assets. So this is the big thing that we're trying to get more of now, that I think in the European Union, we're working towards getting more 3D digitization and then getting more of that 3D content into Europeana. So we have some campaigns around that, for example, across all of the member states. We have now at least one 3D object from every member state. So there's a huge range. We also have a newspaper collection, which is very vast. So a lot of these can be used for research. And I mean, even if you want to learn something more about a cultural heritage site, for example, you can do that with this vast resource. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think just it's actually crazy just looking into the massive collections, and when we think about the types of objects that especially are connected closely with destinations. So within that big collection of images, we have photo archives from regional or municipal archives, where there's just this really detailed documentation of the way of life in these places, in the last few decades, of course, because they're photographs. There are scans of plants, native plants connected to regions specifically around the Netherlands, but all over as well. And also artworks. So some really actually famous artworks that are really tied with destinations. So I live in Delft in the Netherlands, and one of our pride and joys is the girl with the pearl, of course. So Vermeer, hailing from Delft, is something that is a big draw to Delft. And you see it on the ground here, you see her everywhere, and you see people just love to connect with her when they come here. And the nice thing about digital collections is that they can be used in experiences and promotional materials that people can see, before, during, and after a visit. So, that kind of helps that end-to-end visitor experience.
Well, and who doesn't kind of develop that curiosity if they can really connect that with a particular place, a particular period in time, and really kind of uncover and discover that in a more engaging or interesting way, and maybe also take that outside of the gallery in which that's housed. And I think that's really the big opportunity for destinations. Tell us a bit about where you see some of the best examples of Europeana being used in the context of a visitor experience. Are there any which kind of really stand out to you that are just so memorable and really take you to a different place?
Shall I jump in?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's actually not a Europeana example necessarily, but I can tell you about one of my favorite examples. When I was in Rome, and I was visiting the Domus Aurea, which is the Golden House of Nero. And I have a background in archaeology, so I was really interested to be there, but there was like a tour from an archaeologist, which was very exciting. But also the way that they had used digital heritage in that particular tour was amazing. So aside from a tour from an archaeologist and then also lots of visual aids to look at, there was also an opportunity where you could put on a headset and actually look at an interpretation of what the palace would have looked like in the time of Nero. And I think that was something that for me stuck out as something that we could do with the data that we have. And that would be a really exciting way to enhance an existing experience to really bring people back to what something looked like before, where, now it looks quite different. And we do see we've done a lot of things with our data as well at Europeana, of course. And what we're doing right now, for example, is looking at things like walking tours, and we're working on that as a way to show how our collections can show you what these buildings look like in the past. So you can take a walking tour of a city, and we've developed one for Amsterdam. And the idea of these walking tours, of course, is to take you maybe outside of the places that you would normally go to in a city. So take you to slightly different destinations. And then you can see from the pictures in Europeana what the destinations look like in the past. So this is an example of something that we're doing. We have partners who've also worked on similar projects in the past. So I think those are the best examples I can think of right now. Julie, do you have some in mind?
Yeah, well, so some of the really exciting recent ones, and this is just coming to mind because recently I've been working with some young designers at the Willem de Koning Academy in Rotterdam, and they're designing some really interesting experiences. One of them is an interface where gamers can use to use the Europeana APIs, because that's a product that we have as well, to search the collections to look for assets that are specific for their kind of immersive gaming needs. So that was really creative. And there was one as well where they are designing costumes for dancers, actually, that are inspired by the natural history collections of Naturalis, which is one of the collections within Europeana as well. So that's kind of this meta layer of how we're actually supporting other designers to design experiences, using the content that we're providing.
Those are both really inspiring examples from both of you. I think, Fiona, that's you've really kind of described the kind of digitally augmented way of discovering a place and how important it is to have more depth, more storytelling, more content, and also be able to engage people through different modalities, and really leave that creation to those that are best placed to shape those experiences. And I think, on the other hand, Julie, I'd love to now jump into a little bit more the whole thinking around design, because it's sometimes misunderstood. And often we put over X Design Week and they say, well, I'm not a designer. I don't know what they expect. They may be expecting an illustrator or an artist. But I think, for us, design is about shaping experiences and putting the user at the very core of those. And that can exist in the physical environment, and it can go all the way through to how you create a service or a solution. What do you see when you interact with different partners? I think you're using your own design skills on a daily basis, from what I gather. And that's a really great example of that gaming situation where you can really think about that space differently. What are you seeing? Maybe, I don't know if you're seeing also some different approaches to engaging with different generations, different segments in really interesting ways. But I'd love to learn a bit more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, when we look at designing experiences using cultural heritage to kind of enrich, especially visitor experiences or location-based storytelling, we still follow kind of the main best practices of design. So, we're really looking at kind of ideating, prototyping, and testing. So you don't have to be a designer to do this. It's really a process or a methodology to follow. And you just follow it because it allows you to kind of try things out and incrementally build something. It doesn't have to be kind of a big, perfect, polished thing right away. You can design it in bits and pieces and gathering feedback all along by the people who are actually using it and actually experiencing it. So that's when we say user or visitor centered, that's what we mean. So when we're working with these young designers, or when we design experiences for our own products or using our own collections, we're really looking at how important it is to first understand your visitor and your user, and really stay close with them. And earlier, Nick, you mentioned the term co-design. So collaborating with them, understanding what their kind of needs are, interests are, and the affordances that they have. So, for example, hardware can be a limiting factor. If we're not providing hardware for an extended reality experience, then is it something that visitors can access through their mobile device comfortably? And then, of course, extending that into accessibility in general, is it something that everyone can access? Is it an experience that if they have an assistive device connected with their personal devices, can that be used? So these are the things that are really important when we're designing, when we first start to look at designing experiences. And I think if we stay there and we stay visitor focused, that's when we find that the most impactful experience, again, doesn't have to necessarily use kind of the biggest next gen tools. To design a game that is amazing and people come back to work time after time, it doesn't have to be, Final Fantasy immersive, like full game world, $1 billion to develop in 6 years. It can be something like, well, we all love Wordle, right? And that's just a simple game that you can play time after time. So if you start to think along those lines, these are actually things that we see really being interesting kind of across all ages. And I will say I'm impressed even, with the younger generations, specifically these younger designers. They are interested in kind of hybrid experiences. So they're not just thinking only digital, because they've been raised digital first. They're really interested in holistic experiences that have kind of a seamless kind of hybrid kind of end-to-end experience where there might be physical and digital touch points. So an augmented reality moment, but being there physically in place, and then something lo-fi like a zine. They're really interested in Y2K technology too, so Discmans and stuff like that. They think it's awesome because it's vintage to them, of course. So these are the kind of things that I think if you start with design, you start with your visitors, you can come up with some really cool things without necessarily needing a huge budget.
Wow, I have to say, you made me feel really old there. Referring
right?
to Y2K as vintage, even Y2K. Wow, but that definitely sets you back. But I think it's actually a really interesting perspective. And I think the millennial mindset is to think of everything as digital first, because we've gone through that kind of process of really digitalization of our entire surroundings and seeing the benefits of that. And we kind of almost have to reconnect back with, that kind of that hybrid world in which we live in. So I think it's really interesting that you're seeing that amongst younger demographics. Obviously, one of the big things, and we talk a lot about extended reality, I think we really see kind of those opportunities with Europeana to surface content at so many different levels. And if we think about AR as a relatively simple way in which to bring something to life in front of you, and then we think about it all the way through to kind of the mixed reality examples, we can see that those are not kind of living in two different worlds. There's a scale of accessibility and reach, of course. So it's really interesting to see what's possible. One of the big trends right now, however, and it seems to come up in every single conversation, and I've probably just put it into this one, is AI. So AI has been something that I think everybody has largely embraced. There have been those concerns around intellectual property, authenticity, hallucinations, and things like that. But if we maybe focus on the positives, where do you see the biggest opportunities for Europeana to really lift that content into those different environments that AI can maybe create a more dynamic experience that isn't quite so curated as some of the ones we've been talking about?
Yeah, well, I think like one of the big benefits that we have as Europeana is the network that I mentioned, and we also have communities. So, for example, we have a tech community, and in these communities, we can bring together people who have expertise in AI with cultural heritage institutions or professionals working at those institutions, and really start to have those kinds of conversations in a different way. And I think that's how we really approach it, is a collaborative discussion around what we want to do with AI. And then a lot of what we do is also looking to the sector. So, for example, looking to see how cultural institutions are using AI now. And I think there are a lot of really good examples of how we and how they have used AI, or are testing it to see how it works. Like, for example, and it could be helping with collection descriptions, or helping to improve metadata, helping to flag metadata which might be problematic in some way. So we do this kind of work at Europeana. We've been doing it for years, not with AI, but in a more old school way. But we also experiment in how to do that, how that could be done with AI. And we really see how AI can help with analyzing data, heritage data. We know that there's cultural heritage sites out there, and museums, for example, that will analyze visitor data with AI because it's much faster to do that. So, and I think this comes back to, there's always a balance to be had, between like protecting people's jobs and having people have a function, and using technology. So this is something that we've seen when we've done research into tourism, actually, but also, of course, into the cultural sector, that people can feel a bit afraid sometimes of adopting technologies because it's like replacing someone's job. And that's always something we have to have in mind, of how we can have this be an augment to what people are doing. So kind of help people to do a certain job more effectively. And really, I think as the cultural sector, we might think, oh, we can kind of avoid that and leave that to the big tech people. But I think we have a really important voice, in this whole AI discussion, and around ethics, and really thinking about a sustainable future.
Plenty of opportunities to deep dive on some of these topics. I'm so glad we had a chance to talk about design, because Julie, you're going to be also supporting some of the facilitation during X Design Week. And maybe it's a great opportunity to tell those watching a little bit about what they can expect from X Design Week. So we can bring up a little bit more on that. But in essence, X Design Week is spanning 4 days. Now, we often get people saying to us on the chat, I'm struggling to make it all 4 days. So I should really help you to understand the program. So from the 3rd to the 6th, those are the dates of 3rd to the 6th of June. This is when X Design Week is happening. And then on the 3rd, we have a day dedicated to AI. It's called AI for Impact. And it's all about getting really, really hands-on with some of those really kind of exciting ways in which we can use LLMs in a day-to-day basis, but pushing them to the absolute limits of what's possible. So we're really excited about that, because there's a lot of unknowns, but we have a number of tasks and techniques that will be running through the day. And we'll also be setting them against some of the day-to-day tasks and work that people in tourism have to deal with. And there's quite a wide range. So just as you were discussing then, I think AI is such a useful tool for writing descriptions, for analyzing huge amounts of data and helping us to get straight to the key point, for also feeding unstructured data and trying to find really useful insights from that, as well as many, many, many more tasks. But of course, with that, there's lots of things we need to keep in mind, whether it's quality, whether it's that kind of understanding or accuracy, and so many other things. So the AI for Impact Day looks at text, it looks at image, video, all the way through to productivity and data analysis. So that's on the 3rd, and that's with our all access pass. Now, everything really kicks off on the 4th, when we have the start of the X Design Week proper, which is also where we will have Fiona, I believe, will be speaking on the first morning, talking about design matters, enriching visitor experiences with artifacts. And you'll be sharing a lot more about some of what we've discussed today and how that really comes through, and how you shape that into service design. So I'm really kind of excited to see those perspectives that I think you can give a really good first-hand perspective on that. We'll also have amazing speakers from all around the world. So we're kicking off with Jan Hutton from the Australian Tourism Data Warehouse. We'll be hearing from destinations across Europe and exploring these topics in fireside chats and panel discussions, as well as, and most importantly for the whole event, the design sprint. So alongside each of the 4 categories or 4 topics that are highlighted in the program, we will have design sprints focusing on these. So for example, as you can see here, we have 4 kind of thematic areas: destinations and places, the experience economy, culture and heritage, and the technology ecosystem. And we kind of split that up across this really exciting program. So the first morning is all dedicated to digital service design. And we've left a broad brief as to how you interpret that, because for many in tourism, this is quite an alien term. And in fact, we've taken a fairly open view as to how you might consider that, maybe in a very specific sense, or maybe looking at the holistic end-to-end seamless visitor journey. At the end of each section, we run a 45-minute design sprint. And for those who've never done design thinking, as Julie was alluding to, you don't need to know anything about it. Leave that to us, and we will get everybody ideating. We'll create a structured process. And I think one thing that you will all benefit from is being able to stand back after 45 minutes and say, wow, did we explore so many things in so little time with so many different perspectives shared? Each of these design sprints will have those thematic focuses. But most importantly, the team is working right now on looking at what are the topics that we really want to deep dive on. So I can already tell you that in our next section, we're looking at AI agents. This is a really exciting development. There are lots and lots of opportunities developing in this space. And we're going to help create a design sprint where we can really give some thought to that. Actually, this is generational intelligence. Sorry, is the next section. So yeah, really exciting. And this is definitely the flagship or the key component of X Design Week, which everybody really talks a lot about, because it's a chance for all of the participants to be part of the program. We're going to be looking at generational intelligence, as you can see here. So this is everything from Gen Alpha through to baby boomers, and looking at whether they interact differently with digital media, how we engage, how we connect, how we convince. Also looking at a little bit into their different value systems and how to create those relevant interactions and touch points across different generations through the entire visitor experience, from digital right through to that in-person perspective. And here we have the impact days. So we have the AI Day on the 3rd of June, and we have the XR for Impact Day on the 6th of June, where we're going to be getting very hands-on and exploring some of the really exciting opportunities on the horizon and giving some thought about how we can really tap into those and take advantage of those. So I seem to be missing here. Oh, here we go. Sorry. Yes, there is shaping an AI strategy. I completely missed that. And the second part of day 2 is all about immersive storytelling and spatial computing, where Fiona is going to be sharing a really eye-opening set of examples, best practices, and cases that you'll be discussing and talking about. And we're really, really excited to just get a little bit of deeper insight there into some of the ways in which Europeana is being leveraged, but also some of the trends that you see happening in this area. So an exciting program. And I think one of the most important things to say is that as Europeana is our culture and heritage partner, we're very, very pleased to extend a 75%, that's a pretty huge discount, 75% discount to Europeana network members. And this is available to all SMEs. And if you're not an SME, then there is still a very significant discount to be had. So we really hope to see everybody joining. I think it's going to be enriched by having so many different perspectives. As I think Julie will vouch for, diversity is a wonderful thing when it comes to design. It allows us to build bridges across different backgrounds, different points of view, different priorities, and also different skills. So it's something that we really, really thrive on, and that we're looking forward to bringing together at X Design Week. Well, I guess that wraps things up. I guess maybe to go back to both of you, Fiona and Julie, what would you say are what excites you most about being part of X Design Week this year?
Shall I go first? I think from my side, we've been working a lot in seeing how we can bring together more tourism organizations with cultural heritage organizations and really explore those what we would consider to be natural synergies between the two sectors. And I think is going to be so exciting to really meet people who are already working in these areas, and to discuss together, how we can see the future for this sector and this collaboration between the sectors of tourism and cultural heritage.
Our audience will really engage with that, because I think there's a lot on the table, and there's a lot that they can really benefit from if they take that time to understand it better and consider how they can use that. How about for yourself, Julie?
Yeah, I really echo that. And I'm also really excited to kind of work with all of these new groups and really get our hands dirty in the design sprints and ideate and just see kind of the amazing creative ideas that I know are going to come out of it. I always find sessions like that so inspiring and energizing. And yeah, I can't wait, honestly.
Energizing. I think the one complaint that we always have is people are exhausted. So I
That
do think
happens.
that's a good thing. We will make you work hard, but it will be worth it. And I think at the end, everybody sees the results from that. Well, I probably should just give the most important information, which is that people can just head to thinkdigital.travel. If you have any questions or you're not sure which discount applies to you, just reach out through the chat. The team are on hand and ready to help. And it is operated by humans. I always say that because I now think this is
Good
actually
to say
a
that.
real plus, and people often don't believe it, but it is us. So even if you don't have a question, just jump on the chat and say hello. We love meeting people through the site. It's part of our human interaction. So that's us done for this. Well, thank you so much for both of your contributions. I think it's been a really interesting discussion and just a little bit of a teaser for things to come. So looking forward to seeing you and everybody watching in June. And I can't wait personally. Thanks a lot, guys.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. See you soon.
See you.